The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to College Football Coast to Coast. I am your host, Jacob, along with my co-host, Tyler. We are back to talk about the off-season. Tyler, this is our first show in 2 years where we're talking in the off-season. So,
yeah,
it's a new start for the off-season talk for us. We thought to ease into things a little bit here, talking with the off-season, because it is a very long off-season. A lot to talk about, so it really starts with this, and that being our group of five. I know I kind of dipped into it in our last episode. We've been off for a little bit of time, crazy schedules.
we needed it
as usual. Yeah, we needed some time off. It was a long season, and we took a week off, and it was a good week off, and we're back to it. It's right back to it. Hit the ground running, and we'll open with a group of five, and we'll talk a little bit about the conference. But of course, we're going to do a little reverse order here in the offseason, and we're going to open with our question of the show. Tyler, let's see what that question of the show is. It is. Well, let me get there. Goodness gracious. What group of five programs stood out to you above the rest in the last decade?
Yeah, honestly, with this being a group of five theme show, I figured the question of the week has to be what group of five program has stood up above the rest in the past decade. To me, growing up, it was always Boise State, and it's always been Boise State who's been the group of five program that we always look up to. I mean, just go back to the Kellen Moore days. There's a documentary on him. It's a YouTube channel, CFB in 30. If you ever want to learn more about Boise State and Kellen Moore, I mean, this man went 50-2 during his career, and now he's with offense coordinator with the Dallas Cowboys. We don't really want to talk about the Cowboys and how they did last night, but Boise State has always been a program that I have always respected. In the Mountain West, they did pretty good this year. They ended up winning their conference. Fresno State ended up winning the Mountain West this year. But Boise State's really been consistent. I feel like there's only been that 1 or 2 years where they haven't really been in, this big bowl game discussion. Whenever you go back to the BCS days with, their really fantastic head coach that they had, and even with, the coaches that, came after them, they really built that program up. But no one did it better than the early, 2010, 2011, 2012 teams with Kellen Moore. Those were like the Boise State teams right there. I mean, they were loaded, and they weren't really scared to play anybody. I remember they played Georgia in the Georgia Dome, and they beat them. They played Virginia Tech in Washington, D.C. They beat them. So, I mean, this was a program that, we're talking about even last year about the college football playoffs, Cincinnati getting their chance. Boise State, I wished that could have been a team that could have got their shot. They're all so close every time that they got close, either lost to TCU. that really one year that I look back to where that they really had the shot was whenever they lost to Nevada in double overtime. That was the game that I really look back to. But yeah, Boise State, to me, this is an easy answer. Boise State has always been that program above the rest.
Yeah, I agree with you. If you guys tune into Sports Scramble, I'll plug our other show with Wade and Chet. Um, and I mentioned Kellen Moore. We talked about all the NFL hype and coaching carousel and everything that that's going on in the NFL. And Kellen Moore was very high on my radar. I think what he did in that program there at Boise State and what he's doing for the Dallas Cowboys, even though they can't win playoff games except for one, but it really shows that he's excelling, and what he did there with that program to get them where they are today. You still see the growth there from Boise State to this day. For me, I think my group of 5 team that has stood out for me is probably Houston. I feel like Houston is one of those teams that really there's no standout guys on Houston. I mean, we really don't talk extensively about guys from Houston and say, this guy is fantastic. But the thing is they're just a bunch of guys that are really gritty and they'll go get you a win. And that's really what they are. They're hard-nosed kids that'll go out there and win football games for you. And that's what they've done for a long time. I mean, arguably the best finish of their time recently was probably 2015, making a good run. I think that they're a very good program, and they ran very well. You had a veteran quarterback there recently, and of course, I'm not sure how much longer he has there, but it's one of those situations where a decently small school in the group of 5 like Houston is in the top 25 running every season at some point in the season.
Yeah, for sure.
And moving into our news, of course, since we got our question out of the way, but if you guys have any other schools that you think want to show some love, that you think are the best teams throughout the last decade in the group of 5, not Power 5. Don't give us a bunch of Power 5 schools. We want group of 5 schools, the small schools. That's what we like to do, especially for this show, is to dedicate the show to the group of 5 schools for this week and start there and work our way up. But if you guys have any suggestions on what schools you think will be the best school in the last decade, feel free to drop them down in the comments. We'll try to reply to you guys and get you guys can get our thoughts on your picks for those schools and explain or back you up on why that school is one of the best in the past decade, or explain, I don't know, maybe not. So there's some bias there for a lot of people, and of course it's football and we all have our biases. Tyler has his, I have mine. So, and we run the show and we try to keep it as unbiased as possible. But it does happen sometimes, as you can see in Tyler's background if you guys are watching the live show, and you can see on my chest. Moving into our news, a couple of big things. One here, we can talk about architecture all day. Whoop-de-doo. Michigan is creating a wider area for their players in the tunnel. They're removing 45 seats in that area there to give it a little wider room, probably because of the whole Michigan and Michigan State mess. I just think that they need to they just need to go to 2 tunnels. Like, making the tunnel wider, I don't think is going to do anything. It's a pretty wide tunnel as it is. I mean, it's not like a hallway, but just make another tunnel for the visitors. I mean, it's very simple. I don't understand why they just can't make a smaller tunnel. A lot of schools have done it. It would be less work for them to do that than it would be for them to take 45 seats out and try to expand that. I don't know what your thoughts are on it, Tyler, but yeah, it just seems stupid for them to widen a tunnel that is already big as it is.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really on the essence. I mean, we're in 2023 now, and we're dealing with a college football stadium that still has 1 tunnel. Now, I get it. It's old. They haven't really renovated as much. I mean, they've really refurbished it up. But like you mentioned, I'm pulling from the article here. They're going to be removing 45 of seats. And all the seats are portable, and ticket holders who have been informed of the change will be located to a different area of the stadium. So that's another thing that's going to be interesting. The fans, that's probably one of the best tickets that you can get all right there on the 50-yard line. They're going to have to move. So I bet you're going to get a lot of really whiplash from that. But this was really expected from the altercation of Michigan State. We saw even Penn State get involved. I mean, it's just, I mean, there's two opposing teams. You just knew that it was going to happen, especially between Michigan and Michigan State. I mean, between the fight going on. So it's expected. It's definitely the right move for Michigan. But I agree with you. Like, just it's really like don't even take out the 45 seats. I'm sure that there's a lot of room. It's called the Big House for a reason. There's a lot of big space that's available. Just create a visitors tunnel. It doesn't have to be too fancy. It's not like, go look at Iowa. They literally have a dang pink locker room. I mean, all these visiting team locker rooms is on what you call 5 stars. So just put something in the corner of the stadium. That way this doesn't really happen again. So we'll see if there's any more altercations, just watering the player area, but we'll definitely see. If there's more altercations, then the next step has to be just to create a new tunnel.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we don't want to get into the architecture, but yes,
Yeah.
I do think that
we can go on for days
we
talking
could
about
go on.
architecture.
Yes, yeah, and getting into our next news segment here. This is big news in the SEC for the Ole Miss Rebels. That being, they have 2 quarterbacks transfer in. Walker Howard, who was the 3rd string for LSU and was a very highly regarded recruit in the Southeastern Conference, is headed to Ole Miss, along with the former starting quarterback of the Oklahoma State Cowboys, is headed there as well. Tyler, your thoughts on these 2 guys? Ole Miss has Jackson Dart right now. The only problem is where do you see these 2 guys fitting in Ole Miss's quarterback room, and why so many guys that could potentially be starters? And lastly, will we see these guys leave if they don't get the starting job?
Yeah, it's definitely possible. Lane Kiffin definitely has a lot of toys to play with. These are 2 big quarterback hits. Walker Howard was a former 5-star recruit coming out of high school by some media outlets. And then Spencer Sanders, I mean, this has been a guy that we just can't get our hands on. He can really be a Heisman level season. In this past season, too many turnovers is really what led to Oklahoma State's demise, and he was injury prone. Yeah, Jackson Dart, I mean, he did get the starting role. They do have one of the best running backs in Quinshon Judkins. So Walker Howard, like you mentioned, really, I didn't really see it coming. Garrett Nussmeier is going to be probably the guy now in 2024. That opens up the door for him. But maybe that Brian Kelly sat down with Walker Howard and be like, look, after Jane Daniels, he's coming back for his senior season, so he's going to be the starter this year, and then Garrett Nussmeier is going to get the start in 2024. But LSU will be fine. They have more 4-star recruits coming in. You got Colin Hurley in the class of 2024, and then you got Ricky Collins coming in this class. He'll be in fall practice and in spring practice as well. But Spencer Sanders is definitely a wild card in this. He definitely has the experience. He's pretty much the same as Jackson Dart. I think that whoever loses the competition, I think that maybe we can even see a guy like Jackson Dart. If he loses, he could go somewhere else. I know that he's a former USC transfer. I don't know that if Walker Howard and Spencer Sanders, I don't know if they really signed the letter of intent already or not, but who knows? So I don't know if Walker Howard knew that Spencer Sanders was transferring here or not. That definitely threw, a diamond in the rough. But who knows what's going to happen? There's 3 talented quarterbacks, but all we know is one of them is going to get the starting job. And right now, to me, it just feels like Jackson Dart is going to get the job no matter what happens here. I just feel like he had a successful season. He can beat you through the air and also with his legs. He just, at times, they were inconsistent down the stretch whenever Ole Miss was on that losing stretch. But they really had a good start to the season. But, yeah, it's going to be curious to see. I mean, this is a lot of quarterbacks to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, there are, and it's an interesting situation, and you brought up a good point. We don't know if these guys have signed the letter of intent yet for these schools. It's one of those situations where it's all talk until somebody puts the pen on the paper. And I think if Spencer Sanders, my opinion, if Spencer Sanders puts the pen to the paper, I think he'll probably get the starting job. to be honest with you. Seasoned quarterback, veteran quarterback. System in Oklahoma State was good. Only problem was, I mean, he got beat up, and Oklahoma State's offensive line took a lot of that burden from him not being protected. Um, I don't think Ole Miss is going to be the same. They have a big offensive line. That was kind of a big key for them early on in the season, and you started to see that offensive line fall apart. If they can get a strong offensive line, I think Spencer Sanders could be that guy for them. Like you said, Spencer Sanders and Jackson Dart are basically the same quarterback for the most part, and I just think Sanders has more experience, especially in big moments, than Jackson Dart does, and it might cause Jackson Dart to transfer out. You being the starting quarterback, and you get another quarterback come in from a big university and take your job. We could see him out the door very fast. I don't want to talk yet about what would happen in that case. But the only person here that I don't think belongs is Walker Howard. I felt that, I think you and I had this talk, but thought Walker Howard should get out of the SEC. I thought the Big 12 was probably the best landing spot for him. If not that, maybe in the ACC. There were just other opportunities out there, I think, and this was one that just didn't seem right. I'm not sure what Walker Howard's ties are to Ole Miss, if any.
Yeah, I
And
know his father played at LSU, but yeah, I was thinking that he was going to go to TCU because Jack Besh was his high school teammate. That was really his go-to target every time. But there's another thing in this, like Lane Kiffin's not going to bring in a guy like Spencer Sanders and sit him on the bench. Something tells me that like Jackson Dart's starting quarterback role isn't safe. So this fall camp for Ole Miss is about to be something interesting in the spring practice and the spring game as well. So this is going to be a storyline that we'll be keeping up with throughout the offseason for sure.
Definitely. And Tyler, we're going to close out with our last news segment here. Take it away.
Yep, a big recruit for prime time Deion Sanders. The number one cornerback commitment, Cormani McLean, was a Miami commitment for the longest time that you can think of. And then here comes Deion swooping in. And then you have Travis Hunter along with him. I mean, this is about to be a legit secondary in the Pac-12. I'm thinking that I'm getting on the side of Colorado is going to at least make it to a bowl game. They went 1-11 last year. I just feel like there's just something about Deion. He's bringing in his son, Shadir Sanders. I feel like he's just going to light up Pac-12 defenses, especially the lower tiered, like Arizona's defense, Washington State's defense, programs like that, and then Stanford as well. So I think that Colorado is slowly, turning it around, going through the transfer portal, and that's the beauty of the transfer portal. A team like Colorado and a name and image and likeness of Deion Sanders. That's an NIL deal right there and there. So why wouldn't you want to play like a coach like Deion Sanders? I mean, I know that it's in Colorado, Boulder. It's not really, the premier college football program we're all used to, but this is huge, especially flipping him from Miami to Colorado. That's definitely more question marks for Miami losing a top recruit like this and losing to a school like Colorado that really hasn't been, consistent. So a lot of big problems continue for Miami, but huge news and big get for Deion.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is big for Deion. Yeah, I thought we talked about Deion going to Colorado, and I said, this is a big move. And I said, Deion's going to get guys that he wants. It's just going to happen. And I think that, this was bound to happen eventually. And I think there's more coming. It's just a matter of time. And if they have good success, you might see a lot of guys transfer out of the current situation they're in to go over there.
Yeah. I mean, especially at the cornerback position. I mean, Deion knows everything about the cornerback. He knows the grind of the college and knows how he gets to the professional level. So, I mean, if you're a top college cornerback, I mean, Deion is the guy to get you ready for the next level.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think this is just the start of us seeing, Pro Football Hall of Famers come back to their schools and coach them up and things like that, whether that be a head coach or they're there part-time or whatever it may be. But you do see this coming, and I think we're going to see a lot more of it here in the near future. But that's great there for Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffalo. I have failed to mention during our question segment and our news segment our two sponsors. So I'm going to literally just go down the list of all three of our sponsors right now before we get to our last segment of the show, because we are trying to keep our shows shorter in the off season, not so much to talk about. And of course, up next is their group of five. But before we do that, our first sponsor is Piper Golf. If you guys want to go out there and pipe your drives on the golf course on those 18 holes, or maybe 36 if you're feeling good with the Piper golf balls, you guys can head over to piper.golf/sports scramble 10. Sorry, I had a brain fart there for a second. Piper.golf/sports scramble 10. Yeah, there's golf balls for all kinds of players out there, beginners, people that are right there hovering around that 10 handicap, and of course your scratch golfers as well. There is plenty of opportunity out there for you to go get a good set of golf balls that fit your game well, and they are tour quality balls for that non-tour price tag. So go check them out at piper.golf/sports scramble 10. On to our next sponsor here. It is YETI. If you guys want to go check out all of their great rugged drinkware, luggage, coolers, you name it, to throw in the back of your truck or on your boat for the summer season coming soon. You guys can go check all that out over at yetius.pxf.io/scramble. You guys can get 50%, free shipping of your orders of $50 or more. I am having a bad night tonight.
A week off, or a little rusty.
A little rusty, but free shipping on orders over $50. So you guys can go check them out in our link below. And finally, our last segment is brought to you by Fanatics. If you guys want to support your sports team in the NFL, the playoffs are right now full swing. NFC and AFC championship coming up this weekend. You guys can go over there and get your gear after the game. Or if you guys want to just get some gear for your team in general to sit down and support them in the bar, at home, on the couch, or wherever you may be this weekend for those games, you guys can go check that out at Fanatics. You guys can go to the link bottom of our show. Check it out. Go get you some good deals. Always have great deals running 65% off around the clock on their website. So you guys can go check that out in the link below in the show. Getting to our final segment, Tyler, it is the group of five that we talk about. And of course, if we go alphabetically, the first letter of the alphabet is the A, and that is their logo. It is the American Conference in the group of five. How we're going to do it, folks, is very simple. In the conference, we're going to have our standout, which is what we think the best team was in the conference throughout the year, whether that be the first place team in there or the team second or third. And then, of course, we do have our loser in the conference, a team that we didn't think met expectations for this season, personally, for each of us. And finally, most improved, the team we think from last year to this year, or previous years to this year, have really made a giant step in making their program better. And of course, like I said, the American is up first. Tyler, let's start with your loser in the conference. We're going to go loser first, most improved, and then our two standouts.
Yeah, I'm excited about this. This is three bullet points that I've been looking forward to for the whole weekend. And my loser of the American Athletic Conference is none other than the Houston Cougars. I mean, this was a team, if you go back all the way into our preseason show, this was the team that I had winning the American Athletic Conference Championship. And they did not finish first. They did not finish second, not third, not fourth, but fifth. With all the talent that they have coming back. You have Clayton Tune. I mean, he played an okay season, not the season I was really hoping for. Their defense, my gosh, their defense was absolutely abysmal throughout the whole entire year. I just had to go back to that one game where they gave up 77 to SMU. That is just flat out terrible. So Houston, 8-5 record. I mean, you ask Houston Cougar fans, they'll take that any day of the week. But the expectations that I had in the preseason expectations, I was, everybody was picking them along, with UCF and Cincinnati. So Houston is definitely my most disappointing, and they are the losers of the American Athletic Conference.
My loser of the American Athletic Conference falls a little bit below them.
Oh,
Mine is from my lovely hometown.
ooh.
The Memphis Tigers are my team for the loser. A lot of expectation coming in. Mike Norvell is gone uh, at Florida State. New coaching staff come in. I figured he'd get a decent turnout from Memphis, but kind of an unacceptable performance, especially in the conference. 3-5 in the conference, and you finish the season 7-6. They did not do well this year. It was just one of those things where, last few years we saw Memphis be a contender in the American. That third place team in the American that was really fighting for a spot to get into the American Championship. And, we haven't seen that team this year, and we never saw it really come. And that's the part for me that I'm scratching my head at. Um, it, you know, I might be thinking, so much back to the Paxton Lynch days where they were an air raid offense and they go out there and they launch the ball, and they had no problem putting points up. This year, it just felt like they struggled to put up points, and that's why I think they're my loser. Just too many expectations, I think, for me for Memphis to turn in a performance like that, to finish fourth to last in the conference. Tyler, give me your most improved team in the American.
Yeah, I'm going to go to the East Coast on this one. I'm going to go with the Pirates of East Carolina. And I feel like this has been a program that's been dead in the water for the past couple of years. No one's really talking about them. And 8-5 season is definitely an improvement for me, going from last year to not even making a bowl game. I think the Pirates, they really showed and flexed their muscle. I know that they lost in week 1, but honestly, they should have won that game. They had, some plays that didn't really fall in their lap, but they really played NC State. And that was whenever Devin Leary was healthy, and that's whenever NC State was a top 15 team at the time. They lost some games that they shouldn't have. It was an up and down season, but they really finished off the second half of the season strong. So East Carolina is going to be a team that we're going to be looking at next year that could be a sneaky pick to win, to not only compete, but to win this conference. So East Carolina is my most improved team of the year.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to pick a team that really wasn't on a lot of people's radar. Um, for me, I think that's SMU. SMU was a team this year, I think, that kind of surprised me. They also turned in a 7-6 season, but a little better record, 5-4 in the conference, good enough for fourth. Decent performance this season. SMU really hasn't been a powerhouse. They have a couple teams that run for their money. It was just kind of confusing season. I mean, they really played well against, I believe they played Southern Miss this year. And they played decent. They played, it was a strong performance. But mine where I'm scratching my head is this is the same team that got blown out by Tulane on the road. And of course, Tulane proved to be a really, really good team in the conference. And I'm sure we'll both get to them here shortly. But my team has got to be SMU for the most improved. I think they're a rising team. They're a lot better than they used to be, I think. So for me, I think they're a team that's on the rise, and we could see a lot more of SMU here in the next couple of years.
Yeah, for sure. So now we'll get to the standouts. And like you mentioned, mine is none other going to be the American Athletic Conference champs, Tulane. I mean, what a season this one. You go from 2-10 last year. Willie Fritz did an amazing job this year. We saw Tajay Spears' evolution on the backfield, and then Michael Prate was really fantastic throughout the season. Their defense was a little bit inconsistent, but they held down the stretch, especially in that American Championship game against UCF. Their two losses, I mean, one was to Southern Miss and the other was to UCF, a team that, we brought up throughout the season that we could not get a grasp on. So Tulane is an easy standout, definitely the best in this conference.
Yeah, I for me, I'm right there with you. I think Tulane ultimately was the absolute standout team. And if I had to give them both standout and improved, I wish I
Yeah,
could.
they could get two, but
Because really,
we could only pick
yeah,
one team.
I just think that they were unbelievable this year. To come from a team that finished 2-10 last year to turn that all the way around, go 10-2, 11-2, and beat USC in the Cotton Bowl. Fantastic. Coaching is top tier. That was incredible, like coaching job by them down the stretch. you might as well just leave the coaching staff for Tulane in AT&T Stadium, because the Dallas Cowboys need help in the coaching department, like when to call timeouts and things like that, because they can't figure that out. Because Tulane did that perfectly in that Cotton Bowl game. They really flexed, like you said, they flexed their muscle all season long. For me, it was a joy watching them run the football. I don't think I saw a team better this season run the football like Tulane did. Uh, Offensive line was unbelievable. I really think defensively, I think they're a rising team defensively. Um, I think there's some things they could clean up defensively, but secondary wise, they played well against USC. I mean, they shut down those you know, big receivers for USC and basically, tied Lincoln Riley's hands up, and Caleb Williams really had trouble with them. So for me, I feel that Tulane is a team that we will see a lot of here in the future. 7-1 in the conference is outstanding. Too bad it wasn't 8-0 and they went out in the entire conference, which would be crazy. I forget who their only losses to in the conference, but I want to say it's
UCF.
UCF.
Yep.
Yes, that was that weird game.
Yeah, they lost
with
pretty
UCF,
handily, and then they came back in the American Championship and beat them at home. Both of those games were at Tulane.
Yeah, I mean that was crazy for them to come back and win that. It was big for them, and then for them to get a Cotton Bowl bid and win that was great. Moving on from our American Conference, we did talk about that for a little while. Moving to our next conference, Tyler, what is it?
It is none other than the Conference USA. We're going to continue to do our standout, loser, and most improved. This time, let's start with the most improved, and I'll go first. It's none other than the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. I mean, they not only lost Bailey Zappi, of all people, I mean, they just brought back another great quarterback that can sling the rock. I just feel like Western Kentucky is just, finding all these quarterbacks that can throw for over 30 touchdowns a season. So I think that Western Kentucky 9-5 season, 6-2, they fell just short of a Conference USA championship berth against UTSA. But Western Kentucky, what a season it was! They finished their season on a very high note, absolutely blowing the doors off a really good South Alabama team, a team that we were both high on throughout this season. So Western Kentucky gets my vote for most improved.
Yeah, for me, most improved goes to Middle Tennessee State University. I think that they played very well this season. Balanced, wins, losses. You can look at it as much as you can, but their wins were big wins, and their losses were big losses. But they go on the road and they beat Miami pretty single-handedly by 2 touchdowns. This is a bigger game than that. Miami was ranked at the time. They turned out not to be ranked at the end of the season, but it's one of those situations where Middle Tennessee State, I think is a team that can be a problem in Conference USA. They're just a bunch of gritty kids. It's all it is, and they really want to go out there and just play football for their school. It's not a very big school at all, and they handled some teams pretty well. I mean, you close out the season with a bowl win. I mean, you beat San Diego State in Hawaii for a 2-point win on the road, way out there on your little vacation, your hiatus that we talked about for bowl season. It was a bowl vacation there, but no, definitely great for them to get a bowl win in that program is fantastic. So they're my team for the most improved. Let's move on, Tyler, to our loser in the Conference USA.
Yeah, this was another team that I had a lot of preseason expectations on, and that is UAB. I mean, not the season that I was really hoping for, a 7-6 season overall, 4-4 in the conference. This was a team that I really thought that was going to compete with the likes of UTSA. I thought in the preseason that was going to be UTSA and UAB vying for the Conference USA championship, but UAB's season really just turned upside down. I mean, returning one of the best running backs in their program history. Their defense was a little bit inconsistent. Their quarterback play wasn't as I expected this season. So UAB, not really the season that I was hoping for, and that's why they are my loser of the conference.
Yeah, my loser of the conference. I'm gonna go all the way down to the very
Oh,
bottom.
geez.
I'm going to Louisiana
Yep, I
Tech.
knew that was coming.
Louisiana Tech, man, I don't understand what's going on with that program right now. I mean, they are all over the place, up, down, left, and right. Uh, they open the season up. You play an SEC team on the road. Start the year in Missouri. You come back home and you blow the doors off of Stephen F. Austin. Congratulations, because you got to go to Clemson the next week and you get the doors blown off of you there. And then you go South Alabama. It was a great team this year. They get beat by South Alabama on the road. They win against UTEP. UTEP is awful. It was one of those teams that we talked about, just terrible team. And they ended up getting a 10-point win. I mean, they were putting scores up in the 40s, which I don't understand how they couldn't compete with a lot of these teams. If you're putting up 40 plus points and you're getting beat to these other teams, I don't understand how that was happening. It just didn't make a whole lot of sense. In their last win, they get a home win against Middle Tennessee State. I mean, they finished the season 3-9, and it was so bad. I saw a couple of pictures from Louisiana Tech. There's nobody in the stands. There's nobody bothers anymore. You go 2-6 in the conference, and you finish 3-9. It just, there's no reason that should be the case in a state like Louisiana. I get that you're probably fifth or sixth, on the totem pole in the state of Louisiana as far as recruiting goes. But big picture, Conference USA, this school needs to be able to compete in Conference USA. They used to compete in Conference USA, and all of a sudden they started falling off, and it's really strange to see, a school like Louisiana Tech just not compete at all.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Louisiana Tech, I know that you had them high on your board in the preseason as well. So we'll round out the Conference USA talk with our standout, and this is our best team. And honestly, you can see at the standings, this is UTSA. They went 8-0 in the conference. They absolutely steamrolled everybody on their schedule. And there are 3 losses coming out of them. One was to Liberty, was on the road. Liberty was a team that also, you could say that not really the expectations that we were hoping for. I mean, it's the year after Malik Willis, so we didn't know what to expect from the Flames. Then Hugh Freeze ended up leaving that program to coach Auburn. But UTSA, the Roadrunners, absolutely demolished North Texas in the Conference USA Championship. Frank Harris is doing a terrific job building up that program. I think that their offense is one of the best in their conference, and then their defense really can step up when it needs to. So UTSA is going to be a program that's going to be here to stay in the Conference USA, a conference that's really going to be splitting up. You got some teams replacing the likes of Houston, UCF in the American. So we'll see a new Conference USA come next year. But this year, though, UTSA is my standout.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I think UTSA definitely is that standout team in Conference USA by a long shot. Right behind them is North Texas. They had a decent season, finished 500 at 7-7. I know they lost to Boise State in the bowl game, but still a good season, turnaround season for them, for the Mean Green. But I do think UTSA, the Roadrunners, just absolutely, they run the show there in Conference USA. Definitely a good performance by them this season, and a lot more to come here in the future. Moving on to our next conference, we're going to the Mid-Atlantic, I'm not even going to try. We're going to the MAC. We're going for the MACtion. I love my MACtion. You love your MACtion. We all love our MACtion. Tyler, let's go reverse order here. We're going to give our standout first in the MAC.
Yeah, this is tough for me. I was very high on Ohio throughout the season, but since Toledo won the conference, you got to give them it. I think that the Rockets had a really good season. I feel like they were kind of iffy in conference play, a 5-3 record. I expected this team to really blow through the West Division. I think I had them going 7-1 in the conference, and slating in either a 9-3 season or something like that. They ended up going 9-5, which was good enough, but they ended up slipping in their bowl game. But I think that Toledo, we've really recognized this. If you watch the MAC, you should know who Toledo is. They've really been the juggernaut of the MAC. We've seen the days of Bowling Green, and then we've seen the days of of Northern Illinois. But Toledo's always been the MAC, and this is why that they're my standout. Really good season for the Rockets.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to the East division for this one. Yeah, I've got Ohio. Finished the season at 10-4. Fantastic season for them. 7-1 in the conference, which is awesome, amazing for them. For the Bobcats to finish 7-1, I think there's a lot to come from this Ohio Bobcat team. It's a tough system to play in, especially with the schools around you in that general area. For you to play in the MAC and be competitive is very, very good, very strong. So my standout goes to Ohio. I think it's a very clear cut pick for them to be my standout. We'll move on to our loser. Who was our loser? We go from highest to lowest really quick.
Yeah, this is definitely a tough pick for me, but it's got to be Bowling Green for me. This was another team. I feel like all of the losers for me are teams that I had some expectations for. I had Bowling Green actually finish in second when looking at the preseason. I had them over Buffalo, but Buffalo beat them in the head-to-head. That's why Buffalo is over Bowling Green in the standings. But a 6-7 season is not the season I was really hoping for this team. Looking back of their roster, they're returning a lot of guys. They're a veteran team going into this one. No one really saw Ohio coming out of nowhere a 10-4 season. So I think that Bowling Green and a team that, like I talked about, is another story to MAC school. This is not a team that we really are accustomed to going 6-6 and 6-7, especially losing in the bowl game. So Bowling Green is my loser of the MAC.
Yeah, my loser of the MAC is going to be Central Michigan. I thought they would have a decent season this year. You finish 4-8, which is bad. I mean, it's really bad. You do play two teams that were ranked in the top 15 at the time that you played them. They were tough games on the road. You get beat. Both decently competitive games. I mean, you go on the road to Oklahoma State. You put up 44, only because Oklahoma State doesn't have any defense. You lose to South Alabama at home. That was a game that they really were eyeing to see if they could win early in that one. Then the next week you take Bucknell at home and you destroy them and you zip them 41-0. And then reality checks in when you go to Penn State the next week and you lose 33-14. I think for Central Michigan, I had a lot of high hopes for this team. I just felt that this team was good enough to compete. Interesting system there. I mean, their offense is like a Scrabble board, and it's very confusing for those that have never seen a Central Michigan football game. But yeah, I just felt that they didn't take advantage of the full opportunity that they had and the schedule that they put in place. I really thought that they should have been really competitive. They set themselves up for failure with the schedule that they put out there, and it really was a tough season for them. Finally, Tyler, in the MAC, are most improved.
Now, this has been a team that has probably been one of the worst programs in all of college football history in the last decade, and that is none other than the Eastern Michigan Eagles. What a season it was for EMU. 9-4 season, 5-3 in the conference. If it wasn't for the head-to-head loss to Toledo, Eastern Michigan would have been the team to probably beat Ohio, and they would have been the MAC champions, and that would have been crazy. So I think that Eastern Michigan, this is another team like East Carolina. They're really building something special up there in Michigan. So I think that Eastern Michigan is going to be a team that we're looking into next season. That could be a popular pick to win that division and then not pick Toledo. So I think that Eastern Michigan, they're building something special over there. So they're my most improved of the year.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. I think it's Eastern Michigan. I'll keep it short and sweet. Yes, they won their bowl game. Fantastic win for them, and great turnaround season for Eastern Michigan. So moving on to our second to last, we'll move fast through the Mountain West. I just don't see too much here in the Mountain West to look at, but we'll start with our loser in the Mountain West Conference.
So you might say, how is a loser a 10-3 team? Well, I'm going to say right here, I'm going to go again back to the preseason. I had this team not only winning the Mountain West Conference Championship, but booking their ticket to be in Tulane shoes in the Cotton Bowl, and that is none other than the Air Force Academy. I mean, Air Force, the 3 losses were just completely unacceptable. This could have been a team that could have been in Boise State shoes. I mean, 3 of their losses came in the conference, and two of those that were actually one of those against Boise State, and Boise State absolutely blew the doors off of them. I mean, Air Force has always been a program that has run the ball. If you're ever, watching Air Force, Army, Navy, all the veteran schools, they're going to run the football down your throat. And Air Force had one of the better defenses. If you look there, the points against, not many people were scoring against them as well. But I feel like this was a team, they had everything in front of them. They had a really favorable schedule. They took care of business outside the conference, but they couldn't take care of business inside the conference. So for that, Air Force, I hate to do it to you. Hate to do this to the troops, but Air Force, you're my loser of the conference.
My loser of the conference, I'm going to head to the Western Division of it. It's a team that finished second in the division, and that's San Diego State. I think you finish 7-6, you go to a bowl game, and you get beat by Middle Tennessee State. Unacceptable, I think, for a school like that to lose to Middle Tennessee State. No discredit to Middle Tennessee State, obviously, because I picked them as my most improved in their conference. I no shade thrown their way, but I mean, if you're San Diego State, you're 5-3 in the conference. You're sitting there, and you get a chance to play in a bowl game. And really, they should have made the most out of that opportunity. It just wasn't there. I mean, the week before the bowl game, you lose to Air Force 13-3. And you just got done saying, Air Force had the defense to stop people. You only give up 13 points to Air Force, but you only score 3 points at home. It's just completely unacceptable for them to be where they were when they finished the season. Had they beat Air Force, they're higher up there in the bowl season, I think. And I think that they have a better bowl game and a chance to win. But you lose to Air Force. Demeanor's down. You're going to play down. Here comes a high team of Middle Tennessee State, and they steamroll you in a bowl game. And it's just one of those cases where teams get hot, and these guys hit a cold streak late in the season, and it was not good for them to finish that way in the Mountain West. Moving on to our most improved, Tyler, who was your most improved team in the MW?
Yeah, in the MW, this was a team that we talked about in our question. That was Boise State. Boise State really ran through their division 8-0 in the conference. Like I mentioned, they ended up losing to Fresno State in the Mountain West Championship. The crazy part was that they had home field advantage, and they lost on the blue turf, which never happens. But Boise State had little hiccups last year. They didn't really have the season that we were all hoping for. But Boise State was able to turn the corner, get back to the Mountain West Championship. A 10-4 season, they'll definitely take that. That's like the Boise season right there. Get to 10 wins, and then drink a couple of beers, and then enjoy your Idaho summer up there before you hit back the field. So Boise State, most improved.
For me, most improved, it's going to be interesting because it's going to be the best team that was in the conference that won the conference championship, and that's Fresno State. I'm going to pick Fresno State as my most improved team. Definitely seen them rise and rise and rise over the years. So I think Fresno State is my pick. 7-1 in the conference, and that's my difference right there. They're 7-1 in the conference. They didn't go undefeated in the conference, so I had to put them as my most improved. 10-4 season. Golf clap for them. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of upside for them and them being in that conference. People overlook that team in the Mountain West, and yeah. I really think that they're a competitive team, and they can give you a run for their money every Saturday. So they are my most improved team. Let's go to our standouts to close out the MW.
Yeah, this is where I have Fresno State. I feel like to me that they were the overall better team of any teams. I know that Boise State, they went through their division, but, Fresno State really controlled their division as well. Like you mentioned, you brought up San Diego State. That's been a team that we've always looked at being on top of that conference. And they were second, but 5-3 is not the record that they were looking for. But Fresno State, I mean, they lost their starting quarterback for a couple of weeks, and they were able to ride the ship. I mean, they went through a gauntlet in their stretch in the Mountain West Conference, and they beat Boise State at Boise. So they get my pick for that because it's very tough to go on the blue turf and beat them. So Fresno State, a top 25 finish, they'll definitely take that. A 10-4 season, very respectable season. This is going to be a team that's not going to go away anytime soon, folks.
No, definitely not. And I think that's why, I picked them there for my most improved. And of course, you hinted at why I picked Boise State as my standout team. And that's because they finished 8-0 in the conference. They took care of conference play. And that's the biggest thing in college football. Take care of your conference first. Don't worry about outside the conference. Take care of your conference first. Conference championships are the first step to greatness in the division, in those divisions and in those conferences before you get to the big ones in the, you're outside of the conference or winning big games. So we consider those big games outside of the conference. And then those conference rivalries are also big games, but I think it's steps at a time for a team like Fresno State. For Boise State, it's just a team that reloaded and decided to go back out there and play football and play well. And they played well all season long. I do give it to them. Just one little hiccup at the end of the season,
Yeah.
and that's one thing that I think that they'll be ready to
Lost when
go
it
for next
mattered.
season. Yeah, and it's one of those where you just got to be locked in all season long. There was no downtime, even in the group of five. So I think this is one that Boise State will learn from, and I don't think they're satisfied, even though they had 10 wins this season and go undefeated in the conference. Uh, Last conference we'll get to. This is the best conference, and I know there's a reason why you put it last on the schedule, and not
Sun
just
Belt,
because
Sun
it
Belt.
finishes last in our order of the alphabet, how it goes, but because it's the Sun Belt Fun Belt. And Tyler and I love talking about the Sun Belt Fun Belt. No, but the Sun Belt Conference, you had some new teams come in, and it got a whole lot better. So let's start with our losers of the Sun Belt Conference. We'll work our way up to the best team we think that was in the Sun Belt this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, I feel like the Sun Belt was the best Group of Five conference overall, and they're going to be
Absolutely.
the best Group of Five conference moving forward, especially with UCF, Cincinnati, Houston leaving the American. I mean, what's the American going to be? I think that's going to be Tulane's conference to deal with for the next several years. But my loser is a team that everybody was talking about for a couple of weeks after their huge upset win over Texas A&M is App State. 6-6 and 3-5. If you were to told me that they only get 6 wins after beating Texas A&M and only losing by like 1 point because of a 2-point conversion because their defense couldn't actually wait, did they beat or lose to North Carolina? I can't remember.
I believe they beat North Carolina. No, they lost to North Carolina. North
Yeah,
Carolina
you
won that
lost
game
by 1.
63-61. Yeah.
You probably played as best as anybody did against North Carolina, well, outside of Clemson. But I feel like App State. I mean, what in the heck happened when they got to conference play? I mean, they get to conference play and they get absolutely exposed. I mean, Chase Bryce was having a phenomenal start to his season, but the defense just fell flat. They really couldn't even stop anybody. So App State, they went from like the best story in college football to probably the worst downfall that we have seen in a couple of years for sure. So App State, sorry to do it to you. I love that program, but they're my loser of this conference.
Yeah, I mean, the difference for App State is they lose 3 of their last 4 games
Yep.
to teams that really weren't competitive at all in the conference. They took care of Troy, who wins the conference in week 3 of the season.
I know they did
You
not
beat
make the
them.
bowl game because they did not meet the 7-win mark because they played an FCS team.
Right. That's the part that really.
They beat A&M of all teams, and they still don't make it to a bowl.
And they still don't make it. And that was just a situation where I just feel like, those big wins like that overshadowed the main goal for them. And of course, I think that goal was to win the Sun Belt Championship. And they've always been competitive. And it's been them in Coastal Carolina, as far as that goes, as far as competitiveness in there. And of course, I hinted at it. So I'm going to say it. My team that was the loser, even though they finished and they played in the Sun Belt Championship, it's Coastal Carolina. They're my loser in the conference. I was so disappointed with how they finished their season that it was one of those. I'm like, really? It's like these guys went 9-4. Generally, they've been a 10-win team that make it to a bowl game and they're playing well. Well, they get to the bowl game and they get destroyed. It didn't make any sense to me. I'm sitting there scratching my head. Grayson McCall says, well, I'm going to leave. This is my last game at Coastal, and then I'm leaving. And then, nope, I'm going to come on back. Well, yeah, bye, and then hi again, before you move all my stuff out of the dorm. Hey, I'm going to come back in and I'm going to stay here for another year. It didn't make any sense to me. Too much hubbub around the organization as a whole. Just felt all over the place. So I think that I think that they're my loser. It was one of those where I thought we would see a lot more from Coastal Carolina this year.
Yeah, same here. I mean,
Removing
Coastal Carolina, like we've mentioned, I mean, they didn't even deserve to go into. They didn't even win the East technically. James Madison had the better record of them, but since they made the transition from the FCS level to the FBS level, I mean, yeah, that is the team that I had question marks. I mean, what even happened to them? I mean, they get absolutely blown out in their 2 games. They get blown out by East Carolina, giving up 56. 3
They
games
lost
actually,
3 in a row. They
3 in
lost
a row.
3 in a row to finish the
And they
season.
gave up 41 against Troy, a team that heavily relies on their defense. But their like Coastal Carolina's defense just went out the door, and their offense didn't know what to do in the last several games. So, yeah, that's another disappointing team I had.
My thing about it is they're 9-1, Tyler. They're 9-1.
Yeah.
I think that they're gonna be there in the Sun Belt, and they're winning the Sun Belt championship. And I told you, I said they're gonna be the team for me in the East to run the show. I said they're gonna get to the Sun Belt championship, and people are gonna have problems. Well, they get to the Sun Belt championship and they get beat. They lose to Troy. It was one of those situations where it just not only did they lose to Troy, they got destroyed by Troy.
Yep, they got exposed.
45-26. Your starting veteran quarterback decides to come back to play.
And they gave up 56 against East Carolina.
And then, it doesn't make any sense to me. I just, that team is so off the wall. It just absolutely baffles me how you go from 9-1 to lose your last 3 games against teams that weren't even.
That might be the bigger collapse in App State.
Yes, yeah. That's my opinion on the bigger collapse. I just feel that there's stuff there that just did not make any sense for them to lose. But done talking about our losers. We spent too long on the losers. Get rid of the losers. They're done. We're moving on to our most improved. Who's your most improved team in the Sun Belt, Fun Belt?
Yeah, I'm going to a university that you're quite familiar with, and that is the South Alabama Jaguars. 2-10 season last year to 10-2 this year. I know that it was not the bowl game that Jaguar fans were hoping for. They get exposed against Western Kentucky, New Orleans, but other than that, I mean, they're really 2 close losses. They lost 10-6 on a Thursday night against Troy. You were there, and then also they lost by a field goal. 1 single point to UCLA, a team that we were quite high on in the preseason. And UCLA with DTR, they have so much NFL talent on that roster. So South Alabama, I mean, you saw the quarterback, LaDamian Webb, carry that offense. Their defense, I feel like every game you watch them, they're creating turnovers left and right. So I think that South Alabama finally found their head coach after, coaching carousel that we saw in Mobile. So hopefully this stays consistent, and I think that South Alabama is going to be a program that's also going to compete going into the next season as well. So South Alabama, most improved.
I'm going to agree with you in the most improved.
Okay.
Yes, I think my university did an excellent job bringing Kane Womack back to that organization and back to this program into the school has done wonders for this program, and the whole vibe in the city has changed. And people are coming and flocking to the stadium to watch these games. And it's fantastic to see. And they're so competitive now, and they're drawing in bigger guys. I mean, this is a time when we've seen, quarterbacks transfer from big universities. We had a Utah quarterback transfer in, play well. And Bentley played well, all season long. And like you said, LaDamian Webb was the guy, there in the backfield for them. Defensively, Yam Banks is the guy for me that was unbelievable in the secondary. Made probably the craziest interception of the season in the bowl game in New Orleans against Western Kentucky. Too bad that they got beat, but that was a crazy catch for him. And there's a lot to look at for the South Alabama team. They compete against recruiting wise against big universities. I mean, they're competing against Yeah, I mean they're competing against two SEC powerhouse teams for recruits, and that's Alabama and Auburn. And it just seems that uh, they're starting to get a good flow of guys in that want to be system players. And they're system players, but they play well and they fit great into that team. And Womack has integrated that team so well this season, in an excellent turnaround from a 2-10 to a 10-3 season. Congratulations to the Jaguars on their excellent season and going 7-1 in the conference. And of course, the only team that finished above them is our standouts. And I know it's your standout and it's my standout.
Yep.
And that's the number 19 ranked Troy Trojans of Troy, Alabama. I just feel that this team is so off the wall good this year. Defensively, for me, it was defense. Unbelievable. Wall to wall defense for them. Definitely, I think if I had to rank top 10 defenses in all of college football this season, they're probably my number 10 team for defense in college football, even though they're a group of 5 team. They're so well put together on defense that they arguably just are insane. It was just crazy. They only give up 121 points all season long. It's best in the conference. It felt that they ran that conference from front to back.
Yeah, Troy really came out of nowhere. I mean, we weren't even giving them a chance really in the preseason. I think that a lot of people had their doubts of how Louisiana was going to do. I mean, we saw that division. We were saying, like, okay, like this is going to be an open division. Like, we're looking at all these teams, like anybody can win this division. And it was Troy. And going back to their 2 losses, they really played Ole Miss well in the season opener. They gave up 28 points to a very explosive Ole Miss offense, but they only scored 10 in that game. In their second loss, they lost on a Hail Mary of all things. We just love the Hail Mary in college sports against Appalachian State. That was our Miracle in the Mountains episode. If you want to go back to that and whenever we gave our thoughts on that crazy game. But I think that Troy a really terrific season. I think that Troy is always consistent programs. I mean, they're like the Appalachian State. I mean, they've been some times where they knock off some power schools as well. I mean, it's like you do not want to schedule Troy and you do not want to schedule Appalachian State whatsoever. Heck, you don't even want to schedule Army the way that they run the triple option and all that. So I think that Troy really great season. They beating South Alabama on that Thursday night was very key for them to making it to the Sun Belt Championship. I thought whoever won that game would ultimately win the Sun Belt, and that was true because Coastal Carolina didn't even show up. Troy blew them out the doors. And like you mentioned, I mean, not only was this defense the best in the conference, I mean, this has got to be one of the better defenses that we have seen in the country this season because there wasn't not many great defenses out there. You saw Georgia. They're probably the best defense in the country. Michigan, they had some ups and downs, but they're still pretty good. But Troy, to me, is a top 10 defense this season.
Yeah, I felt that they were excellent this season. Great job for the Troy Trojans in their Sun Belt Championship. And, of course, with their bowl season. I feel that this was good that we gave the group of 5 some love this week. It was good to do
We
it.
definitely talked a lot about the Power 5, but we gave a whole dedicated show on the group of 5. We have nothing about the Power 5 other than the
1
news.
hour. 1 hour show dedicated to the group of 5, yes, other than the news. But 1 hour dedicated to the group of 5 is fantastic to do it. Of course, next week, if you guys want to check it out, we're going to start talking about the Power 5, but we're talking about one conference for the show. So we're starting in one conference.
Because we're going to go heavily in depth on each Power 5.
Yes, so we're going to go heavily in depth. And the first one...
We will keep the 3 different bullet points. I definitely like that.
Yes. But the one thing that we will be looking at in the Power 5 next week, in the one conference we'll be looking at, Tyler, is the Pac-12.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to open up with a big one in the Pac-12. It's going to be great to talk about some of these teams that were crazy good and some teams that didn't meet expectations and some teams that are right there on the brink of becoming the next Pac-12 champion.
Yeah.
If you guys want to see that, you will have to tune in next Monday to College Football Coast to Coast. If you guys want to check out any of our other shows, check out Sports Scramble with me and Tyler, Wade, and Chet. You guys can check that out. That'll be on Thursday night. You guys can check that out on Thursday night on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever else you get your podcast at. Same here with us here at College Football Coast to Coast. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out on the audio versions of Apple Podcast and Spotify and wherever else you get that. And of course, SEC Talk will come back when we get to late basketball season here and we're talking about the conferences. I know Tyler and Wade will be back talking to you guys about
And we'll have a
the
special
SEC.
show dedicated to that as well here.
Yeah, so I know that they'll be talking about some basketball here around the corner soon enough because March Madness is coming, whether we like it or not. And of course, we will see you guys for the Pac-12 review and who we think was our standouts, our most improved, and our losers in the conference. We will see you guys next Monday for some more College Football Coast to Coast.